Talks between members of the Liberation Struggle war veterans and government have broken down. Our reporter Pule Letshwiti-Jones is there live for us. Pule, just tell us what's happening.
Hey, Shahan, good evening. And what we know is that just a couple of minutes ago, some of the ANC Liberation Struggle veterans were subdued inside there and were taken out. We do understand that there's been a large contingent of police officials who've now entered the St. George Hotel conference here in Centurion. And what we know from internal sources that were inside is that there were shots that were fired and that there was an altercation between some of the veterans and, of course, police officials. Now, let's have a look at the background of what happened. What we know is that there was a meeting scheduled between the veterans and, of course, the deputy president. And the meeting was supposed to be underway at 5 p.m., but that did not happen. We understand that the representatives from the task team that's looking into the issues of the ANC veterans were, of course, Minister Thandi Modise, and, of course, the Defence Deputy Minister of Military Veterans was also here. The task team was here as well, officials, and, of course, some members of government. No members of representing the ANC in their capacity were here. And we understand that talks broke down earlier on, Shahan. They could not reach a conclusion in terms of the demands, and that's where the altercation came in. That's where we were then called to say there's actually something that's happening. We could actually, during the call, hear some of the veterans chanting and singing inside. In fact, they forcefully closed the doors to say no ministers or officials from the task team would leave. Now, some of the demands, of course, include a 4.2 gratuity fee, which they say is supposed to be a payout, stemming from the consensus document which was drafted in June and then taken into signature in November last year. But they're also demanding other issues such as bursaries for their children and, of course, houses and health medical certificates which would look after them. Those are some of the crucial demands which they are saying as part of that repatriation plan, which was signed in agreement with the Deputy President in his capacity as the chairperson of this task team.
So the ANC said just the other night that the Deputy President will be at this meeting, right, to handle the situation, because we know that these veterans were at Luthuli House, a group barged in, and then the building had to be evacuated because they breached security. Where was the Deputy President?
Well, what we understand is that during that breaching of security, the Deputy President was not there. In fact, we spoke to the ANC head and the President, Sibongile Basani, who had said that they had tried to reach some sort of agreement with the disgruntled veterans, but that did not happen. And as it is right now, they then decided to sleep inside Luthuli House. Now, you'd remember the ANC national spokesperson, Pule Mabe, saying that they had evacuated the building, but in fact, that was not the truth. We still had wording coming from those veterans saying that they had actually slept inside the headquarters of the ANC. And therefore, what we know is that the protest or the march had not stood down. In fact, they decided to then continue yesterday when we were there, telling us that they will not bow down until their demands are actually met. And today, this is what we're seeing. A meeting that was supposed to be concluded successfully to reach their agreements turned out to be ugly, chaotic, amongst other words you could look for, Shahan. And they're saying that their demands were not met. In fact, what we know is that this is a similar play of what we witnessed last year in November in Limpopo, when the Deputy President, David Mabuza, visited the area due to disunity amongst the veterans who, of course, come from Apla, Azandla, and some of the veterans from the Mkhonto Wesizwe, who were saying that they are disunited due to the fact that government isn't taking their concerns seriously. Now, the ANC still has a long task ahead of them as well in their capacity as a party to now reunite some of these veterans for the conference that's expected to take place later this year in December. You would have heard Pule Mabe, the national spokesperson, saying that's one of their tasks, but it does not seem as though this might be fruitful if they're witnessing such behavior from their veterans who are supposed to be guiding the party forward, and of course some of the officials from government.
Yeah, it's a very interesting situation, isn't it? Because there's been so much contention around this, and we are able to show video footage from inside. We saw some people being subdued on the floor as police officers actually took control of that meeting venue, and it is at the St. George's. Yeah, this is actually medics, it seems, who entered, but people are on the floor. I'm guessing it's because of the tear gas that was used, because that's what was fired in an attempt to break up the meeting and get people out of there, in particular the minister and the deputy minister. Pule, do we know where the minister and her deputy are right now?
Well, look, we have been trying to get some sort of information since we got here as to what happens next from now. I tell you what, a few kilometers away before you come this way, there's actually security all over. It's incredibly hard to get inside here. And what we understand is that we know that there has been the intelligence in some security services vehicles have entered the hotel now to try and assess the situation. We were being told that the paramedics were also here just a few minutes ago as some, people were hurt inside. Just in front of me here is also security. Police officials trying to ensure that they vet everyone who tries to leave the premises and try to control those who are going inside. You cannot step on the other side of the road because of security concerns. But what we understand is that when we were making our way here, we spoke to some of the veterans who were inside. And they were actually telling us that the situation has been dire, and there was actually an altercation between them and the police. There was a usage of weapons as well. This is a similar stunt that we heard that allegedly occurred at Luthuli House just 2 days ago, where we also on air, Shahan, live on air, where one of the leaders, Lwazi Mzobe, who is the coordinator of the Liberation Struggle veterans, saying that they were willing to go pound to pound with the police officials to ensure that they get what they want. And this is what we're seeing today unfolding in these premises, chaos. And for now, what we know is that police are yet to release a statement as to how the ministers are doing, and we haven't seen any spokesperson here this far. But what we do know is that there were veterans inside who were telling us that the situation was bad, and then some people were really hurt in there.
Yeah, I'm sure our editorial team is also trying to get a hold of the spokespersons for the Defence Minister and her deputy. So hopefully we'll get some information about how they are doing. Let's talk about the issues again here, because these ongoing negotiations have basically reached a fever pitch, right? Which is why we're at this point. 4 million rand each. That's what the members of the Liberation Struggle War veterans are actually asking for. And it's very unlikely that they're going to get that amount.
Well, Shahan, this whole talks began last year with the drafting of that consensus document. And clearly, with them having to raise such crucial concerns, they are of the view that they are backed up about that document, which they say is legally binding, which they say government, and I say this very carefully, is, of course, they are entitled to that fee that government is supposed to pay out. And, there's been so much promises that have been made throughout the last couple of months. The Deputy President, David Mabuza, heading the task team, of course, would have actually met these veterans today. And what is currently happening now is that they were telling us that the Minister of Defence and Deputy Minister, being there in their capacity to represent the task team, did not understand what was the agreement between them and the Deputy President. And therefore, that's where the altercation began, because what we are told is that Minister Thandi Modise then said to the veterans that they will have to now go back to the Deputy President, consult and come back, because government at this moment does not have the capacity or the resources to give them what they want. And from there onwards, we understand that this is where the back and forth and the tug of altercations actually came forth, where the veterans were saying that in the first place, this is what we demanded. We were promised that we would see the Deputy President. Yes, on record, the ANC did say that the Deputy President would meet the veterans, but that did not transpire. We understand that the Deputy President, David Mabuza, is expected to be in the Northern Cape tomorrow on his election trail campaign. And he's probably busy with that at the moment. And that's what the ANC has been saying, that, they're quite busy with the election trail campaign, and therefore the veterans are not taking any of this anymore. They are of the view that this has taken more than a year, and all they want is what's theirs. They believe that this, having been an agreement on paper, it supports them and favors them. In fact, they go to the fact of saying it's not only veterans from these political parties. They include officials who have retired from the security clusters, such as SAPS. So it's quite a number of people we're dealing with here. And actually, government has actually tied themselves here in this agreement, and now they're finding it really hard to actually escape. And this is actually the end result of what we're seeing tonight.
All right, Pule, I saw some people walk behind you while you were speaking. I'm going to give you like a minute to see if you can get them to speak to you about what's possibly happening inside. While you go to fetch them, don't go away too long though, I'm going to speak through the visuals we're seeing on our screens. And this is from inside the meeting venue. Of course, you're seeing people who have been told to face down on the floor. This is after police actually barged into that meeting. Tear gas, of course, has been used. Heavily armed task force members, we're told, arrived on scene once things turned ugly. If you are just joining us, these are visuals of what happened earlier, a short while ago, I should say, at the St. George's Hotel. That's where a meeting between members of the Liberation Struggle War veteran and government was taking place. Those talks broke down. It's then believed that the Veterans Minister, Defence Minister Thandi Modise and her deputy Thabang Makwetla were actually held hostage. They were not allowed to leave the meeting. That's when, of course, police officials intervening, using the tear gas and obviously detaining, it seems, several people. Paramedics were also brought in to see if anyone was injured during the scuffle. The meeting, of course, was meant to discuss the benefits of the former fighters who say that money is owed to them. They believe that they should actually get a gratuity payment of up to 4 million rand each. And the veterans have been raising these salary issues, among other matters, in the past few days with the ANC. We know that earlier in the week, they actually went to the ANC's headquarters demanding to speak to officials. They eventually were supposed to speak to the Deputy Secretary General, Jessie Duarte. She didn't pitch up. And they were told they could spend the night because of COVID protocols. They had, of course, been there until after the curfew. The next day, the meeting did happen, but the DSG, we're told, was not there again. And then there was some contention. A group of about more than 20 people breached the ANC headquarters security. They went inside into that meeting, and then the ANC decided to evacuate its building. It speaks volumes about just how angry the Liberation Struggle War veterans are. They are really trying to get this money, saying that it's been taking far too long for those payments to be made. And government is supposed to have dealt with this issue a long time ago, they say. We were told by the ANC in a statement earlier in the week that the Deputy President, David Mabuza, would actually handle these negotiations. But it doesn't seem like he was here when this went down. So these visuals, as you're seeing, are a breaking news story of this meeting between the Liberation Struggle War veterans and government, breaking down. The Defence Minister Thandi Modise and her deputy Thabang Makwetla apparently held hostage and told not to leave. That's when police officials intervened using tear gas, it seems, and dispersing this meeting. And people were told to go on the ground, of course, to make sure that there's no fights. And they seem to have actually listened to authorities, because this is videos from inside that has been sent to eNCA. Pule, I'm hoping you're back with us. I'm not sure if you managed to get to speak to anyone in this time being, but just for the benefit of those who are tuning in, because this is now gaining some momentum online on social media, who people are saying that it's unbelievable that this is actually happening. What more can you tell us? Oh, okay. So Pule apparently is actually trying to go inside the venue to get us a better shot of what is happening inside. But if you're joining us, these visuals of people on the floor, they were, of course, told by police to lay down, put their heads facing the ground. This is police, of course, diffusing the situation at the St. George's Hotel in Irene in Gauteng. A meeting between government officials and the Liberation Struggle war veterans taking place. It's been some contentious issues over the past couple of days. They first went to the ANC's headquarters earlier on in the week. They broke COVID-19 regulations, eventually breaching ANC security as well, with a group going inside a meeting and were evacuated. So about 15 SAPS vehicles are at the gate of St. George's Hotel. 2 vans are actually blocking the entrance, we're hearing. A medical car was allowed to enter the premises, and approximately 50 people were attending the meeting and is still inside the conference earlier. But that has now, of course, turned the situation, turning completely. Pule Letshwiti-Jones, a step closer, I'd say, to where the action happened. Where are you? What's happening?
Of the hotel. I believe this is where everything actually... Let me speak to this couple of gentlemen here. Sharp, altercation happened here. Ministers held hostage. At some point you guys were standing outside. How do you guys feel? Are you shocked at what happened?
Yeah, we are shocked because firstly when we got here, it was normal. All of a sudden we just had some loud bangs and...
Bangs?
Yeah, there were loud bangs. We don't know what was...
All right, apologies for that. Pule Letshwiti-Jones is trying to gain access to the St. George's Hotel, that meeting area where that chaos happened with the Minister of Defence and the Liberation Struggle war veterans. That person he's speaking to saying that there were loud bangs, and I'm guessing that's the tear gas that was actually fired when the armed task force members actually got into that meeting, because those members were allegedly not allowing the Minister, Tani Modise, and her deputy to leave the venue after the talks broke down. We are trying to re-establish that connection to Pule, but let's try and bring up those visuals of earlier scenes as well. It looks like police actually did manage to get a grip on the situation, because people were seen on the ground facing down. There were also paramedics who were brought in to have a look at people who might have been injured. So you see a stretcher that was brought in there earlier as well, and police officers standing overhead, just making sure that nobody tries to leave. A paramedic seems to be treating someone on the ground, and this is basically the aftermath of that chaos that unfolded in the meeting. Quite worrying when you have a minister and a deputy minister who are actually held hostage. It leads you to wonder what type of security was in that meeting. Police, of course, are all over the place. Pule managed to get from outside the street to closer to the entrance of the St. George's Hotel. And here's a statement we're seeing. At around 5 o'clock, there was a meeting at the hotel which Deputy President David Mabuza was supposed to have taken part in, but he could not attend. You'll remember that we were told the Deputy President was going to handle the situation. Pule, I understand you're back. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Shahan.
All right, so you were talking to that one gentleman who said he had heard a loud bang, and then we lost connection. What else is he saying?
Yeah. All right, so you were still telling us that you heard a loud bang. You were not sure if it was a gunshot or it was something else.
Yeah, there were a couple of bangs. We don't know whether what was being shot, tear gas or guns, but we are not sure. There were a lot of bangs, and we were asked to move into our rooms, and there were a lot of police that were coming in and soldiers. And we saw some people coming in without uniform, but we were told they were special forces. Yeah, so... But right now we are being told that the situation is being arrested. Everything is coming back to normal now.
So what were you told right now? Because we saw some of you guys, gents, were running back in and a bit happy. What were you told?
We were first told that the situation is not good. It's not good. We're not even allowed to go outside. So the reason why now we are outside, and just because we were told that now the situation is back to normal, we can relax. But we thought something very bad was going to, because there were a lot of people present, like soldiers present. There were a lot of police that were coming in, the ambulances. When we saw ambulances, we thought maybe people, there's a killing that is happening. But so far, we didn't hear if any any death being reported.
I'm curious to know what's happening at the back there. Do you know what's happening there?
The situation is happening at the back, but we're not allowed to go.
If you can perhaps just show us, and we should try to see.
Yeah, but it's at the back of this hotels.
Yeah.
These rooms. Okay. We're also not allowed. But
excuse.
All right, Pule, we are losing connection with you taking that walk, but while you do that, let me read a statement issued by the National Joint Operational Intelligence Structure, and this is what it says. It says about 15 SAPS cars are at the gate of the St. George Hotel. 2 vans are blocking the entrance. A medical car was allowed to enter the premises. Approximately 50 people who were attending that meeting are still inside the main conference room. The incident happened after the LSWV members had a meeting with senior officials in the Department of Military Veterans in Hatfield at 1 o'clock. The department mentioned that they were working on something that will cover them in future, but currently cannot meet their demands. At 5 o'clock, there was another meeting at St. George's Hotel, which Deputy President David Mabuza was supposed to have been part of, but he could not attend. Defence Minister Thandi Modise and Minister in the Presidency Mondli Gungubele, including 2 deputy ministers, were present. The LWSV members refused the government officials to exit the conference room because their demands were not met. It is said that no one inside the conference room is injured. The SAPS has rescued the ministers and are in the process of making arrests. It's a very dramatic thing to actually say and for it to happen, where the SAPS has to rescue ministers who are held hostage by members of the Liberation Struggle War veterans. And you know, the fact that this happened at this time, this week, shows that none of the efforts from this group have been attended to. The Deputy President, who they were expecting to actually be in this meeting, we're now told was not there because he had other commitments. And the Defence Minister, Thandi Modise, as well as Mondli Gungubele, the Minister in the Presidency, had to go instead because they realized just how serious the situation was. And then the LWSV members are said to have held them hostage, and the SAPS had to actually rescue, and I'm using the word rescue because that's what this statement actually says, that the ministers and their deputies had to be rescued from this meeting, and arrests are being made. Pule is back with us. Pule, are you closer to where this happened?
Extremely close. In fact, if you can see, this is a sign of where the meeting was supposed to happen. It's the task team and, of course, the Liberation Struggle War veterans who were supposed to meet some of the ministers like you've mentioned before. I've heard that joint statement as well, Shahan, and it's closely accurate to what we predicted earlier on when I spoke to your colleague Sally at 5 regarding this meeting that had taken place at 5 o'clock. So just here, as you can see,
All right. That connection, of course, is not stable because Pule is moving deeper inside to where this meeting actually took place. There are some sources at the venue saying 3 people are going to hospital. We will still have to confirm that. Pule, are you back? Yeah, inside it looks like.
Yes, I'm back. We're just trying to find out what's happening here. We see police and security personnel by the door, holding it locked. But I just want to see as to what is happening inside. It seems as though there's still people inside here, Shahan, because they're quite strict and concerned about who may be inside here. And earlier on, we were told that there was, of course, members inside. And this is what we want to see right now.
We are busy doing our job at this stage. It's not the right time, not for now.
Are there still people inside, sir?
What's happening here at the situation right now inside?
Can you just give us space to attend to, you understand, the police work, you understand, so let's do our work as police.
Why are these gentlemen being forced to sleep on the floor inside right now?
For now, we're just getting all the information. then we'll address you.
Has
Yeah.
everyone been evacuated?
Injured, sir? Anyone has been injured?
No, we still, that's why I'm saying we're busy. We can't say anything could be the wrong thing. The information we're giving now will not, be the perfect stuff.
Have the ministers been evacuated?
Give us a chance, please, to do our job. Guys, can we just assist the
Why
media?
did you fire tear
Just
gas?
help
Why
us.
did you
Don't.
fire tear gas inside?
Yeah, you say that.
You can.
Okay.
I've just seen the.
Can we please just move from here?
Have the ministers been evacuated?
We will talk to you. Don't worry. Talk to you, but just give us police.
Well, there you go. As we're being told that, sir, please.
Yeah, apologies for that. We are losing that signal, so much movement, but we'll go back to Pule shortly. Police, of course, standing outside the door where this incident happened, saying, give us a chance to actually do our jobs, get information so that we can give you more on it. And reporters asking whether the ministers are safe and evacuated, but no response to those questions. So it's a situation that's ongoing. We're hoping to get a press release from the National Police spokesperson, Vish Naidu, shortly. We're told that police are currently working on that statement. Forgive me for looking down because I'm actually getting information on my phone from the editorial team about what's happening, because this is live television and this is happening right now. It's unfolding. Pule is trying to get inside to get more information, but police are blocking the door. If you are just joining us, it's our breaking news story, and that is, of course, the Liberation Struggle War veterans have clashed with ministers, it seems, after a meeting did not go in their favor. They apparently did not want two ministers and two deputy ministers to leave the venue after talks broke down. They are requesting a gratuity of 4 million rand each. And it seems when they did not get that promise, they did not want the ministers to leave the venue. So Pule is back with us. Where are you now? What are you hearing? No, Pule is not back with us. Apologies for that. So let me take you through the events that we saw. Let's bring up the earlier visuals of people inside, because we can't go through there live right now. Police are blocking the door. We were sent video footage, there it is, of people actually facing down on the ground. That's after the heavily armed task force members and SAPS members arrived on the scene. Tear gas was fired to actually disperse people inside that meeting and evacuate the ministers. I'm going to read you a statement again if you are just joining us from the Nat Joint statement. And it's very important because there are dramatic words that are being used in this statement. We're told that at 5 o'clock there was a meeting at the St. George Hotel. The Deputy President was supposed to have been part of that meeting but could not attend. Defence Minister Thandi Modise and Minister in the Presidency Mondli Gungubele, including two deputy ministers, were present in that meeting. The Liberation Struggle War veterans members then refused the government officials to exit the conference room because their demands were not met. If I haven't said it enough, their demands are basically a gratuity of 4 million rand each. Now, it is said that no one inside the conference room was injured. The SAPS, and here's the dramatic word I'm using, rescued. The key word here is rescued the ministers and are in the process of making arrests. You'll see paramedics actually there as well treating people inside. And this is basically a door that was closed. So you might see the man in the yellow shirt or jacket that was in the corner at a door. I'm guessing that was the door that has now been closed because the media managed to get in. And we're now not being allowed access because it is an active crime scene. People are still being questioned and possibly going to be arrested because you cannot simply try to hold hostage two ministers and two deputy ministers. You know that there are going to be charges and people arrested and charged for this particular situation. So it's an ongoing situation, and Pule Letshwiti-Jones is trying to get us more information. I'm looking at visuals that are not currently live on air, but behind me, where he's trying to make his way out to speak to people who might have been closer to the venue. He did speak to people earlier on, one man saying he heard a loud bang and then eventually police moving in, and he said he didn't know if anyone was injured, but it was, of course, dramatic enough for him to have actually been concerned. Pule is back with us. Pule, can you hear me?
Can you?
Pule, can you hear me? No, you're not. Okay, Pule, if you can hear me, do me a favor. Try not walking around so much because we're losing your picture when you're actually moving. It might help if you manage to stay in one place. But until we establish that connection again, if you are just joining us, it's going for just 3 minutes to 11 o'clock. We will continue our broadcast until midnight tonight on eNCA to continue bringing you this breaking news story. The SAPS has rescued 2 ministers and 2 deputy ministers from a meeting that was held at the St. George's Hotel with the Liberation Struggle War veterans. The ministers, you might ask, who are they? Well, it was Defence Minister Thandi Modise and Minister in the Presidency Mondli Gungubele, including 2 deputy ministers. They were rescued after they were held hostage. Why were they held hostage, you ask? Well, they were meeting with the Liberation Struggle War veterans who were asking for a gratuity of 4 million rand each, among other things. This matter has been going on for months now, and these members were hoping to get some finality to their demands because they were supposed to meet the deputy president, but he couldn't make it to that meeting, which is why Mondli Gungubele and Defence Minister Thandi Modise actually made it to this meeting instead. These members were not happy, of course, when they didn't get their way, and they didn't want the ministers to leave, which is why the heavily armed task force came in. Pule, I can see you now. You're still, and we have your image. Don't move, okay? Don't move. Just tell us what more you've been able to establish during this time.
Well, Shahan, evening again. I think firstly, let's start by apologizing because, we've been trying to actually go this direction where we saw police still inside, where we were told there were still some veteran, Liberation Struggle War veterans, members who were subdued on the floor, and we still saw some smoke of tear gas, what seemingly looked like an operation to try, like you've said, rescue some of those ministers who were held hostage inside that conference room. And what we understand now, police are saying any moment from now they will be coming down again to address us as to what is the way forward and what is the direction going forward. Now, you mentioned, you give some sort of background of what happened there, and one could seemingly, try to conclude that this was, of course, a desperate last move attempt from the veterans. Now, we've been following the story since around Monday, where we spoke to one of the national coordinators of the Liberation Struggle War veterans, Lwazi Mzwabe, who said that, they didn't want to come to the stage of having to forcefully have an altercation with some of the ANC members on Tuesday when the statement was released from the ANC headquarters that there had been a breach of security and that they had to evacuate some of those members. But then again, the very same organization to say this is a government matter, as of course being headed by the
All right, we've lost that signal again with Pule Letshwiti-Jones. We'll try to re-establish the connection and get more information. He was just giving background on the situation regarding the Liberation Struggle War veterans and how long these talks have been ongoing. It's quite interesting to find out that they first tried to have their demands heard by the ANC earlier this week. They breached security there and the building had to be evacuated. And then we're seeing similar things happen at this meeting with government officials because this agreement is supposed to be with the state, not the ANC, as Pule is pointing out. We are getting some information that 3 people have been taken to hospital. I'm seeing a video footage on my cell phone, which we will turn and put on air within this hour quite shortly, of people in ambulances and the Caspers outside the venue as well. Things, of course, not going very well for the Liberation Struggle War veterans. And just for context, and so you know how this has unfolded over the week, on Tuesday, they actually went to Luthuli House in Johannesburg, CBD, to meet with officials there from within the ANC. They were then told that no one was available, and they slept there overnight in the building because they couldn't leave. It was after curfew. On Wednesday, we had more breaking news, hearing that there was a security breach at the ANC's headquarters. Now, what had happened was that there were some people from the Liberation Struggle War veterans allowed to go into Luthuli House for meetings with officials. But eventually, when the Deputy Secretary General, Jesse Duarte, did not come to the meeting, according to the veterans, and this is what they told us, they did not like that, and then a group of over 20 people gained access to the building. They somehow breached security, raises questions about security at Letuli House, and entered that meeting. That's when the ANC decided, nope, this cannot happen. They're now breaking the law in terms of COVID-19 regulations, and we have to evacuate the building. So that's when talks broke down there. They were there again, speaking to officials the next day, but no way. On Thursday, which is today, we were told that the Deputy President would meet the veterans, but that also didn't happen. He wasn't available, which is why Thandi Modise, the Defence Minister, as well as Minister in the Presidency, Mondli Gungubele, actually was at this meeting, as well as two Deputy Ministers. Turned ugly. They were held hostage. Police had to intervene.